Good morning, everybody. Today I'm bringing you the follow-up to my wisdom-based Falconer Ranger. I got all the way to level cap, and I managed to pick up all of the rewards pretty much, except for the 20 Reaper Point reward. I now have the 10 Reaper Point reward, the Reaper Cloak. I have the level 20 reward in the other level 20 cloak, or I guess the cloak that doesn't really have a different name, but it looks like the red sash. I have the Reaper Eyes, which is super exciting, and I have the Reaper Footprints because I've achieved 5,000 favor as well. Since I was able to get all of these things playing this character, I wanted to kind of detail out exactly how I built this character and how it's turned out so far, and kind of go over some of the key points and give you guys a guide so that way if you want to do something that I can prove definitely and consistently works all the way through all the quests, you'll have that opportunity. So to give you a quick recap, we didn't do every single quest in the game on Reaper 1 difficulty during the leveling process, although we did most of them. We skipped Temple of Elemental Evil on Reaper mode and instead did it on hard. As well, we did not do the Slave Lords on Reaper mode, we did the Slave Lords on hard. We stayed true, doing pretty much every quest that was available on Reaper mode all the way through up until quests that were level 17, 18, and 19. Some level 17, 18, and 19 quests become very difficult, having monsters suddenly with health up to 4,000 to 5,000 per monster, which makes it quite hard to deal with, and especially since grouping at that stage becomes a lot more challenging, it's not like you can just all of a sudden have a full 6-man party and blow through these quests. However, doing pretty much every single quest in the game from level 1 all the way through most of the 17s, it pretty much allowed us to pick and choose our quests that we wanted to do from level 18 and 19. In theory, we also could have finished off our favor in epics, because there are quests like the Evening Star Saga that allows you to do that in epics and get an extra 200 or so favor without too much challenge once you've hit the level cap. Especially once we hit the level 18 and 19 quests, we decided to kind of take it easy and start doing those quests on hard mode, as well as the new quest in Update 43, the Soul Splitter, because if you haven't had the chance to play Update 43, I really don't want to give it any spoilers other than the videos of our first playthrough going up on the channel, but an important thing to note is that some of the monsters in there on Elite difficulty cast the spell Prismatic Spray. And Prismatic Spray has an instant death effect that actually bypasses Death Block and Death Ward, which is the dismissal effect. So it effectively dismisses your character from the dimension, instantly killing you. So please understand, if you plan to do this quest chain, that it is quite dangerous if you're not prepared, because you need to lock down casters right away so you do not get Prismatic Sprayed out of this world when there's nothing you could have done about it. As well, a lot of the level 19 quests are very, very sketchy, especially if you try to do them on Reaper mode, since the way that Reapers work. I'm going to make a video about this next week, but just to very quickly summarize, Reapers get their health and damage numbers based on the level bracket that you're playing in. So if you're playing quests from level 1 to 10, and that's the modified quest level, which means that if a quest is level 9 on normal, it would be level 11 on elite, which is the modified quest level. If the modified quest level happens to be between 1 to 10, you fight a Reaper with a certain amount of health and damage. Once the modified quest level becomes 11, or starting at level 9 quests, the Reapers gain a lot more health and a lot more damage, way more saves, and a lot more durability. All of a sudden, these things take more than 4 times the time to kill, and it can be quite dangerous if you're not prepared for it. This happens again once you reach level 19 quests, as doing them on Reaper mode puts the quest to level 21, and I can tell you from first-hand experience that level 21 Reapers have a very, very high amount of health. Now, I am fairly certain that once you hit quests at level 29 or 30, again, you'll be hitting that another bracket of level 31 to 40 modified quest level, and the Reapers gain another bump in difficulty, but at that point, once you're hitting level 29 and 30, your character damage and abilities are pretty much all fully unlocked, either having somebody who is able to use Mass Hold Monster to lock down Reapers entirely, or just having a ton of damage to brute force your way through them, or a lot of health so you don't really worry about the incoming damage. Now, to talk in specifics about the build, one of the things I was very skeptical about while I was playing it was how effective Wisdom was going to be as a damage modifier. I mean, I figured that on the hardcore server, your Wisdom and Strength would probably be very similar, since a lot of the things that really boost up Strength over Wisdom happens to be in the epic difficulty, being whether it's Filigrees or Primal Scream or other effects that really just tend to boost Strength over Wisdom. However, during the heroic leveling process, I never felt like my damage was lacking. In fact, I felt like I had really, really high single target damage, and especially once I hit level 12 and unlocked Dance of Death, I was able to hit multiple targets at the same time with relative ease. So big packs of monsters ceased being something that I was worried about. On top of that, because I was playing as a ranger, rangers get high fortitude and reflex saves as their base, and then low will saves. Well, I just happen to be a wisdom-based character, and since I had a decent amount of dexterity and constitution bringing up the rear, I actually managed to have very high of all of my saves going through. This meant I didn't have to be scared too much about like different spell effects that would hit me, so comet falls that would knock me down, or instant death effects, keeping death block on all the time but still not worrying too much about necromancy spells, or horde wilting, or disintegrate. It felt really good during the leveling process. The falconry attacks were also significantly better than I was expecting. Since we were doing the quests at a few levels over, the falconry DCs scale off of your base character level and your assassinate. I used Caneth crafting to make sure I always had an item of assassinate on, so that way my falconry could knock stuff down pretty consistently. There were very few instances or very few monsters that would actually resist the effect. In general, pretty much every single monster on every single difficulty during the leveling process, because of the items I was equipping, was managing to fail their saves and become helpless against my attacks. I mean, realistically, after trying this out, I'm not really sure I would go back to the strength-based variant just because of how much more defense and survivability I get here. Yes, you do in fact get more critical threat range and the ability to turn enemies around with exposing strike out of the Deepwood Stalker tree, but the falconry just gives me so much defense, it's really hard to say I wouldn't want to use it. Now, during the leveling process, I did end up leaving Deadly Instinct, which is a big chunk of damage, as well as Coordinated Strike, which is an area of effect blind attack out of falconry, all the way until level 20, so I didn't have that at all during the leveling process, but I felt like this was important. I wanted to grab the critical threat multiplier out of the Azamar Scourge tree, and I want to make sure I got all the good stuff out of Tempest, because at the end of the day, Tempest is the majority of the damage, and if I didn't have damage, it was going to take a million years to get through all of this stuff. I mean, doing pretty much every single quest in the game takes a really, really long time, and so I'm very fortunate that I had the time to do it, but hopefully if you're planning on getting in there, you still have the time, and maybe this build can help you out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward over to me, who will explain in detail about kind of how the character works, what are some of the important things, what are your breakpoints, and how you should build this character. And so here we have it, the end final product, the Ranger, hitting that maximum level of 20, getting all the rewards, getting the favor reward. Just to make sure we're all clear, we got the level 20. I am actually level 21 now because I did do some epic leveling. It was pretty fun. And also loading up my favor menu all the way at the bottom, we got that 5,003, so we're all set on the favor reward. So if this is something that you would like to achieve and you want a character that can carry you through that, well, I'm going to detail out exactly how to build it right now. As a follow-up to my previous video, you'll see I'm still focusing mostly on wisdom. It's my most important stat, more important than all these other stats, so that's why it's kind of like the highest one at plus 17. This character, being a wisdom character, happens to drive all of its saving throws to a decently high point. You'll notice that my fortitude and my reflex saving throws are at a base of 12, whereas my wisdom or my will saving throw is a base of 6. So having that extra wisdom being 8 points higher, it's able to bump that up a little bit more than it would otherwise normally be. Now, as far as the different skills that I decided to take on this character, I only used a few. Most importantly, I used concentration and heal. Concentration and heal simply because concentration allows me to cast spells and heal my allies when I'm taking damage, or myself, as well as heal skill just giving me some more healing spell power. And since I'm a wisdom-based character, it just seemed like a good idea to be able to bump that up to get even more healing spell power. Spot was essential just to be able to spot monsters, especially in melee combat. It's really bad when different types of champions can sneak up on you and then instantly take you down, so it's good to have the spot high enough so you can identify champions as they're coming in. If you don't know how to identify and manage different champions, you'll be able to check a link just up at the top screen there, and then you'll be able to see how to identify and deal with different champions. I put 1 point into tumble, actually 2 points just because of level 28 and everything else to put in. That way I could tumble when I needed to. I've used magic device, which is essentially just me being able to use wands of shield. You need wands of shield, so have used magic device, use wands of shield. And then of course balance being another skill. It's important to being able to get up when you get knocked down so you don't immediately die when you get knocked down. Now, as far as the feats go, one of the best parts about playing as a ranger is that you get all of the 2 weapon fighting feats for free. So the fact that my dexterity started as a 14 and stayed as a 14 means I actually don't qualify to get all the 2 weapon fighting feats, but that's okay. Since I'm a ranger, I get them for free, which is absolutely fantastic. I was able to specialize and go into different feats, so I took the dodge, mobility, and spring attack line. I did this because dodge effects are really hard to come by. It's difficult to get dodge items or to manage it into your build sometimes. So by doing this, it gave me both maximum dexterity bonus so I could get some more dodge, as well as just getting dodge from spring attack and the ability to move without an attack penalty. There was a change about a year ago that made it so that 2 weapon fighting got way better bonuses when attacking while moving. better than they used to get. So this is actually a pretty worthwhile feat, and I do recommend taking it. Other than just those defensive feats, I also took some, not range feats, some martial feats. I took Knight's Training, Improved Critical Bludgeoning, and Precision. Knight's Training and Improved Critical Bludgeoning are basically the same thing. They give +1 to the critical threat range of my Morning Stars, taking all of my Morning Stars from a 20 base critical to a 18 to 20. So I have a 15% chance to critically strike anytime I attack with my maces, which is pretty good. And then I took Precision because it gives extra chance to hit, which is essential when you don't really have any past lives. You need to have as much hit chance as you can get, as well as giving extra fortification penetration so I can critically strike targets that I otherwise wouldn't normally be able to do. Now again, as a ranger, you get improved precise shot and many shot, so I do have improved precise shot here on my track, although I can't use it anymore now that I'm at epics because I am using epic defensive fighting. However, during the leveling process, you don't have epic defensive fighting turned on, so being able to just at any moment throw on a bow and use many shot to be able to take people down is really, really useful. Especially Reapers that happen to be at range or are taking their time getting into you. Have that key bound somewhere, have your bow ready to go, so that way you can just start taking pot shots at enemies. You'd be surprised at the incredible amount of damage you can pump out, even if you're just not playing as a bow ranger. All of a sudden it's just boom, 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 you're knocking people down, and it's really, really powerful. Those are pretty much the feats. As far as my favorite enemies go, I happen to have quite the array. You get Undead for free when you're playing as a Aasimar Scourge. They're always the Scourge of the Undead. Following Aasimar Scourge, I also get Animal from the Falconry tree, because for whatever reason it just happens to be there, which is kind of nice. So for 1 point, it's extra damage against animals. For those of you that don't know, for every 5 Ranger levels, you happen to get a +2 damage bonus. So since I'm level 20, I get +10 damage against all of these monster types. So 1 point for +10 damage against animals is pretty good, so I made sure to take that out of Falconry. In order of how I actually took these, since I already had Undead, I went with Elemental right away. Elementals provide quite an issue, especially in the early game. And then after that, I went with Evil Outsider, because you start encountering some Evil Outsiders at that point. I went with, or at level 10. I went with Constructs, and then humans and plants as my remainder. Humans might seem weird, but there's a lot of humans in DDO, and especially in some of the quests level, 18, 19, a lot of these humans have a ton of health. I think of quests like Sane Asylum, which is filled with mostly humans and some Zorian creatures, all of which either count as evil outsiders and humans, and the humans in that quest happen to have 4,000 health. They take a lot of time to deal with, so an extra 10 damage is super duper helpful, which is why I went with that. Now, as far as the Ranger spells go, I've learned some interesting things. Hold Animal is kind of interesting because Hold Animal, it has a will save, so you could potentially use it offensively, but realistically, it's just that mindless targets can't make a save, so spiders or any type of vermin, scorpions, they automatically fail, which I found this to be quite useful. If you see a big champion scorpion coming at you, you just say, Hold Animal, and it stops moving. Outside of that, the spells are pretty standard. You want to make sure you've got Ram's Might for the extra damage, and you're always using Resist Energy on yourself or other people, since as a Wisdom-based Ranger, I have a ton of spell points. I have 1,000 right now. I can't spend this. I will never spend this by the time the quest is over, casting as many heals or other things as I want. So you just want to use this as often as possible. Hand out Resist to your whole party. Hand out Resist to yourself. Make sure you've got your Resists up, because not having Resist will kill you. It's the same reason why you have Protection from Energy as well as some defensive abilities like Bark Skin to give you some more armor class. As far as spells go later on than that, I took some of the purging spells, stuff like Neutralize Poison, because Neutralize Poison allows you to get immunity to poisons, which is really, really nice. So after you cast the spell, it actually has a lasting buff effect that makes you immune to poisons for a minute. This means that Drow can't actually stun you with their stun paralysis poison, which is super helpful, as well as some of the monsters that have really, really dangerous poisons, like when you get into the Underdark. So be careful about that, and Neutralize Poison, let it be your friend. Of course, Freedom of Movement is very, very powerful, and I cast on every single person in the group once we start any quests. And then Cure Serious Wounds is just nice. It takes to level 14 to grab Cure Serious, but it's still helpful to have just to spot heal people when they need it. Now, as far as enhancements go, this is kind of where the breakdown is, so you'll be able to find this here. I'm going to include pictures as well in a guide below, so if you need a follow-up here, I'll have all that there. So this is pretty straightforward. Out of the Aasimar Scourge tree, I wanted to make sure I'm picking up Stronger Bonds all the way through to get that extra healing, because if I get into a pinch, I can just heal myself all of a sudden and go boom, 1,000 health back. It's really, really handy since I'm mostly focused on Wisdom. I also want to take some of the healing amp, and I mostly focused on the damage on the left side of the tree. I feel like a lot of this other stuff isn't as important. The Divine Purpose gives you extra damage against undead, but you don't always fight undead, so this isn't as important. And then on top of this, Ascended Bond Scourge is a cool effect that causes you to die if you forget to turn it off, and that's really dangerous on the server, so I don't take that because I will forget to turn it off. Instead, I just take the things that synergize with 2-weapon fighting. So you get all the 2-weapon fighting bonuses, oversized 2-weapon fighting, double strike, offhand, double strike, all that other good stuff. I actually take strike down, which I wasn't too sure about how well this attack was going to be, but it's actually just an attack with +3 critical threat range, which means it lands pretty consistently to grab critical attacks, and it does +3 W, so your critical attacks you use with that do more damage. It's just a good attack, especially once you already have Dance of Death going. You hit a monster with this, and all of a sudden, 4 monsters in front of you are all taking double crits from your main hand, your offhand, your double strike. It's really, really powerful. I actually really like Strike Down, and I can't believe I didn't use this the first time I played Aasimar Scourge. And then, of course, Destroyer of the Dead, +1 critical multiplier. How can you go wrong? Now, in the Tempest tree, I took pretty much all the good stuff. I took the damage. I took the damage, the damage, the damage, the damage. All this stuff is damage. I went through this in the last video, but the most important things are Dance of Death, which allows you to hit 4 targets at the same time with regular attacks. So whenever you regular attack, that's actually hitting 4 guys instead of 1. I took Growing Storm, which is +1 to damage every single time you attack, so it's effectively +10 damage all the time. And then I took 1,000 Cuts, because you don't always need bursts of damage, but when you do, it's extremely helpful. So for example, if you take the passive bonus of this, you get 4% double strike and 4 melee power. 4% double strike and 4 melee power is okay, but when a Reaper walks up, I just put 1,000 cuts, and all of a sudden, boom, thing is gone. It just disappears instantaneously, and I don't have to worry about it. So for me, this is a very defensive ability. I use it when I'm in a pinch, and I need to get out of a situation. Or if there's a lot of monsters, I'm going to be surrounded quickly. 1,000 cuts, Dance of Death, everything just starts falling down. So Dual Perfection says it adds your offhand modifier attribute to damage. It doesn't actually display. So I'm not actually adding my full attribute modifier here between my main hand and my offhand. So yeah, I don't know if that's accurate, but I think it works. It just doesn't display. Maybe it doesn't work. I'm not sure. And then I took the Lightning Absorption because Lightning Absorption is just good. I don't have too many of the defensives, but you want to make sure you're picking up all the cores. All the cores are fantastic for this character, giving yourself more defenses in incorporeality and more defenses in physical and magical resistance rating. And then out of Falconry, what I prioritized is I wanted to have all of the individual attacks, so Diving Attack Strike as well as Go for the Eye Strike. And then, of course, we took Coordinated Strike later to be able to get the AoE Blind, as well as Deadly Instincts to get the extra damage. I took Deadly Instincts and Coordinated Strike at the end at level 20, so I did not have them at all until I went into Epics. Also, bear in mind, Coordinated Strike currently does not scale with Assassinate bonuses, so while my Diving Attack Strike is a 53 DC, my Coordinated Strike is 5 lower at 48 because it just doesn't scale with Assassinate bonuses, even though it literally says in the tooltip description, Assassinate bonuses. It's currently bugged and it doesn't do that, so just be aware your Coordinated Strike is not going to land as often. As well, Coordinated Strike doesn't... it does a decent amount of damage, it's fairly good, but it doesn't make my targets helpless, so keep that in mind. I made sure to pick up 5% health and True Seeing. I did not take Blindness Immunity because I didn't think it was important. And also, I'm just out of points. I got nothing left. This is a very, very tight tree, and this is how I decided to build it here. As far as how you take the points during the level up process, you're going to want to start by focusing very specifically into the Falconry to get Wisdom to hit and damage, as well as picking up Go for the Eye Strike and Diving Attack Strike. This will allow you to do Reaper mode relatively early, since you can just use Go for the Eye Strike to blind Reapers, and when Reapers are blind, they're helpless, so you can do a decent amount of damage to them. It's also important by the time you hit level 7 that you take this point here in Stronger Bond. So you want to take 1 point here, and then you take this core for 2 points at 4, and then you take this point at 7. This allows all your attacks to become Ghost Touch. So once you do level 7, it doesn't matter what weapons you're using, you always have Ghost Touch weapons, and you can always Slime Dunk on some Reapers. So that would be what I'd recommend there. Once you're level 7, you're pretty much situated to do every quest on Reaper mode, which you can start with the level 3s if you want, since it is the hardcore server. After you have this, so you have the Go for the Eye Strike, and you have this, the Aasimar Scourge Stronger Bronze, then everything else goes into Tempest. Tempest, Tempest, Tempest. You want to take everything in Tempest. You want to fill out everything in here first. So take all of this stuff right away, go all the way up the cores whenever you can, and then after you've done that in Tempest, then you go into Aasimar Scourge, and then you fill out Falconry last. That is how I built this character. That is how I recommend you build this character. So, as I said, go up here, grab the Diving Attack Strike, as well as the Go for the Eye Strike, and the wisdom to hit and damage. That's 13 points. Aasimar Scourge in here, spend to get stronger bonds, and then everything else in Tempest. Now you'll notice you have to be level 7 here, so your points, you'll have extra points, so you can start spending points in Tempest early. Just make sure by the time you're level 7, you have this stronger bonds. So not only does that give you 4 uses of your healing hands, which is a lot of extra healing, all goes touch. As far as my equipment, I'm actually using a full set of Ravenloft gear, as well as some matched crafted. So I've got the Garstone lenses on for some devotion. I have the Mistladen Investment because I'm using this with the Silent Avenger set for the extra fortification penetration and sneak attack damage. I've got the Braces of the Fallen Hero for the strength and the Insightful Constitution and quality physical sheltering. The Insightful Constitution is good, and I just found that the strength was very, very useful. Also, I've happened to find a Proof of Disease Topaz. If you have Proof of Disease and Poison, these actually make it so you don't fail these saves on a 1. So very, very useful. And then again, grabbing just an extra +6 against saves versus disease. Since my Fortitude save is already pretty high, I pretty much never fail disease saves, and I don't get disease, which is nice. I have the Ring of Nightfall for Insightful Deadly, as well as some physical sheltering. The Flightfoot Greaves gives me reflex saves, natural armor bonus, some speed, freedom of movement. Now, I wish there were better Greaves than this, and I've been thinking about different items, but this is pretty good, especially just as an interim piece. I have crafted Gloves of Assassinate and Healing Amp. I don't have Marks of House Caneth right now, and so I can't actually craft anything onto this as an extra. I'm not sure how I'm going to figure that out, because I already took level 20, and I can't do House Caneth quests, but whatever. That's where we're at right now with this. Maybe do some House Caneth epic challenges, but we'll see. Assassinate's important, and so is Healing Amplification. My other ring, I'm wearing the Cursebane ring because it's got Vitality as well as quality magical sheltering. And then I managed to, it's also picking up Death Block. You want to have Death Block at all times in this thing. Don't think, oh, I'm just going to take off Death Block for a bit and use Death Ward. What do you do when you hit a Beholder where all of a sudden they just strip all your magical immunities away? Please use Death Block at all times. For my belt, I'm using the set, so the braided cut cord, giving me dexterity and quality dexterity, as well as blurry and a little bit of dodge. And then I have the Shadow Hail Cloak, which gives me deception and ghostly. I don't actually need ghostly for the offense, but 10% incorporeal mischance, which stacks with my Tempest Ranger of 5%, so I have 15% incorporeality mischance. The belt gives me blurry, so I have 20% concealment mischance. And then also just for my general stats, I happen to be picking up 38% defense from my armor class and 9% dodge right now, which is pretty good. Then I've got the Voice of the Master, because you got to get the XP, although if I'm not using the Voice of the Master, I'm using the Cursebane Focus, another very good item, giving magical sheltering and spell saves. Essentially with this on, my saves are when I'm playing with others, or if anybody else gives me any buffs, but even self-buff, my saves are like close to 40 against spells. And look at that physical magical resistance rating. I have a good combination, so my character is pretty defensive in this regard. I mean, reducing magical damage by 37% is kind of nice. Although, because we're just doing epic leveling and we're doing epic normal, I've been using the Voice of the Master because, I got to level fast, and that's kind of where I want to go. And then finally, I'm using the Warden Scribe Pendant. It gives me Constitution, and it gives me Deadly. I don't get those from any other sources. The natural armor overlaps, and you don't need the curse resistance. My character only gets cursed if I roll a 1, and I roll lots of 1s, because for some reason none of these give it so you don't fail when you roll a 1. As far as my actual weapons that I'm using, this weapon I totally forgot about, and I don't want you to. It's amazing. This is called the Forgotten Light. It's a heavy mace that you get out of High Road, out of the quest Arrest Stop. And this quest is amazing. It is so good. And the reason why is because it has an expanded critical threat range. This weapon is an 18 to 20 before anything else, and it doesn't have keen, which means right now this is a 16 to 20. The threat range is calculated correctly here. 16 to 20 times 4. So 25% of the time, I'm critically striking with a Forgotten Light. I didn't realize this until we were doing the quest, and then I had somebody give this to me, which is a Reaper one to give us magical resistance rating. And then afterwards, after we left, because the guy said he had one, I thought he picked it up out of the chest because it's bound to character, or it's like bind to character on equip, not on pickup, so he could have passed it to me. But he passed it to me in the chest after I recalled, and it was a Mythic 4 with Reaper melee power of 3. So it was a 7 melee power 1, and I would have had 2 of them, but I don't. So instead I'm using the Beacon of Day. Still a very good weapon. I happen to have a Mythic 4 because I got lucky, but I am still very bitter about that. Although this weapon is Metaline and Insightful Armor Penetration, which is stats that I need, but I'm still sad. Anyway, that's basically it, and all you need to know to play this character. If you're looking for a full build guide, I will have one in the description. This is a ton of fun to level, and as far as we go into epics, I'm going to be leveling out everything, but the general plan is to be using Legendary Dreadnought and then I will be getting some twists out of both Shadow Dancer, because I'll be getting Meld into Darkness for 100% dodge chance for 15 seconds. I will be getting Balanced Attacks out of Primal Avatar, because this means that every time I roll a 20, I knock targets down, and since I attack about 7 to 10 times a second, that means once every 2 seconds I'm knocking a target down, and hey, they're knocked down for 2 seconds. So this works really well. If there's one target, I basically can't die. Even against Reapers, they all get knocked down by this. It is very, very powerful. And then other than that, I'm also going to be twisting Rejuvenation Cocoon, because it's just helpful for me and my friends being able to help people out and prevent people from dying. And then finally, as my last tier 1 twist, I'm going to be twisting out of Draconic Incarnation Dragon Hide, which when you have 3 points in this prevents you from failing Fortitude saves on a natural 1. I'm also going to be taking Epic Reflexes, so I can't fail Reflex saves on a natural 1, which means that if I get those saves high enough, I will pretty much be immune to all Reflex-based effects and Fortitude-based effects, which is really ideal in the hardcore server. So that's my plan. That's what I'm going to do. Legendary Dreadnought, I'm going to smash people to bits. So there you go. So thank you guys for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you do check out this build guide, because it'll be in the description.